Hi, it's Chuck Mason. I'm back out in the shop, and today I'm going to be talking about hair jigs, especially the ones that we use down on Lake Erie, and specifically how I build them up to give them more body without going to the expense of using bucktail. So I've got an ultra minnow head. It's already been painted. This is an antifreeze pattern. So in order to get that antifreeze pattern, I've taken candy yellow, and I get all my stuff from TJ's Tackle, and you can find the website. And then for my back, I use a little candy green, and that gives that nice shine, kind of like antifreeze. So what I'm going to do is put my first couple wraps on, and I'm using 210 denier fly tying thread. It's fairly big, and it's the kind of stuff that works out real well when I come to doing these jigs. Now, when I go whole hog and I start doing all this, I've got 4 of these vices. So I don't really need to be spending a ton of money on this. And unfortunately, we're getting about just toward the end of this bottle of Loon Hardhead. And I use the clear. So I'm going to go ahead and build my first core. Now I say core, I'm building layers. And this is not a new thing to fly tyers. They do that to give body to their nymphs, egg-sucking leeches, that kind of thing. Give it a little more fluff, give it a little more body, a little more lifelike action when they're slinging their bugs. Now this first core that I'm doing, I am using Flashaboo. It's a hairline product, another well-known company in the fly tying world. And I'm using a perch or a green chartreuse. It's going to give me a little extra flash. It's going to highlight some of the colors that I'm going for when it comes to my antifreeze pattern. Just for an example, I use a variety of different sizes, different applications, each one basically to set up or match the types of weather that I'll be fishing in. 1/2 ounce, 5/8, 3/4, and occasionally I'll go to a little bit above 1 ounce. So I've got my first wrap. You can see it's not real hard. Just go around it, let the glue do its work. And that's my first core, or my first layer of the body. I'll get rid of that. Next up, I am going to use some chartreuse craft fur from Hairline. Now, usually this is the only step most people use, and the stuff you see in the stores, you can reflect on that. All right, my hardhead is just about reached its limit, so I'm going to go outside the box and use a slightly bigger brush for the video tonight. And that's quite a bit on there, so that's going to last. You know, I would prefer it to be fresh. I don't use as much, but, you know, this is what I got. Adapt and overcome. All right. So this is, like I said, this is my next core. So I'm going to wrap this all the way around it. And for this, I'm going to be doing 3 layers. And this chartreuse is just going to give it even more body. All right. And you don't have to be perfect. You use a lot of thread if you try to cover every little square inch. I'm basically going to be taking 5 little sections. You can tell my little Sears scissors aren't the fly tying deal, but you know what? I don't pretend to be a fly tyer. And that works quite well for my purpose. And if you ever followed my blog before the newspaper crashed, or crashed the website, I've done these quite a bit. And if you follow me on Facebook, Fishing Michigan, or Fishing Eyes, my regular page, you know that I've done this quite a bit, and I get pretty fancy. And why not? These are mine. I don't make them to sell to a bunch of people. And now I'm going to do this before I interrupt myself. I'm going to pull the hair back a little bit, and I'm going to go back and start working my way forward. All right. Again, I'm not trying to make it super pretty yet. That'll come. And you can see I've got my layers all the way around. Good spacing. Good. You know what? I seen a spot. I'm going to get it one more hit. Just a pinch. Does it really matter? No. Does it matter to me? A little bit. Now, there's a wide range of ways we can jig in Lake Erie. And hair jigs and blade baits are probably the most commonly used. Ripping wraps, ripping shads from Northland and Rapala. They're starting to get their own. The jigging wraps, people are starting to cast those out. I'm going to grab a little bit more of this hardhead cement. There we go. And that's still going to work even though it's kind of like in a gel mode right now. So I'm going to put a little more on because I can. That's probably a little more than I wanted, so I'm going to work it around with my fingers. All right. So just to update, first I put on the Flashaboo, then I put on the craft fur. Now to really get it to match up with the finish on the jig, I'm going to take a little bit of polar fiber. It's also a fake hair, but it's got a little more shine to it. It's got more oomph. And I'm just going to put that over the back like that. Do some wraps to get it down there. And that'll be my back to match up with the color of the top of the jig, which was the candy green. I'm going to fluff it out a little bit, see if I want to put a little more on. And yeah, just a little bit. I'll make the back just a little bit wider. Now, why am I doing this in February when I should be ice fishing? Well, it rained today. And I am going to be heading north eventually to find some ice. But today was a good day to get this done, knock off a couple colors. Antifreeze has been really good. Any variation of white has been one of my favorites throughout the years. Adjust that just a little bit. All right. Another reason I'm doing this is the Michigan Walleye Tour. The month after we go to Detroit to kick off the season, we are going to be fishing out of Bulls Harbor on Lake Erie. Now, it's the first weekend of May, so yeah, I might be trolling. It might be warm enough where I'm trolling with crawlers, or I might be pulling my deep husky jerks or shad wraps. You never know. But if I can find a jig bite, I can stay on top of that. I will do that all day long. What you're doing is you're staying on top of active fish, and you don't have to move. When you troll, you're looking for fish, and hopefully they're spread out and you can keep getting them. But when you jig, you can stay right on top of them. And if they're good size, why would you want to leave to find smaller fish? That's my philosophy. And in my opinion, for what it's worth, hair jigs are the original swim bait. Before people started putting big plastics down, whether it was craft fur like we use down here on Erie or the bucktails up in Minnesota. This is our jig bite. And you can cast them, you can retrieve them. Let's see, I'm going to put just a little more right there. And you can tell how the color has changed a little bit. The polar fiber really gives it a shine. It really gives it, and it also wraps up in the bobbin. All right, and let's see. I'm going to pull that back, give it a wrap to see how it went. Try to get it all to tie together. There we go. And let's see how the coverage is. That looks good, that looks good. Maybe a little more right there. Now there's other videos, and I've seen them. That's how I actually got started. But they just put on a little bit here, a little bit there. They're almost depending on you to put either a plastic trailer or a live minnow on here. Now when you give these jigs the hair body this extra life by wrapping it up in cores, you can actually get away with not using live bait. The hair will continue to flow, fluff. Every time you cast or you put some action on the end of it, it'll pulsate in the water, just like marabou. Now I'm finishing this off with just, 3, 4, 6 overhand loop knots. And then to keep it tight, I'm just going to hang the bobbin with the thread still attached to the butt, and that will hold it tight. Now you'll notice it's not completely perfect, and it doesn't have to be. If you want to make it look pretty, you can, but you'll be just wasting some more cement or thread. All right, so that's a big gob. I'm not really worried about conservation on this stuff because this is it. This is going to be the end of this bottle. Now they've got a UV version also. I've never found it necessary to use it. This works quite well. Wipe that extra glue on the bottom of the table. And I'll just take my finger and smooth that out. This will lock up tight because it still has to dry. Now normally all you got to do is put like a little wrap on the first one, or a little dab on the first wraps. But since this is starting to wear out, you will notice that each layer I put some extra cement on. All right, I'll get that out of that eye. I want to get it underneath over by where this line's hanging. And that's it. All right, pull that back a little bit. Get this stuff out of the way. And that's a Lake Erie hair jig. I'm going to call it a tournament edition since I'm going to be using it in the tournaments. All right. Now I'm going to exchange this over a little bit, move that out of the way, and you can see one that I've already done. This is what it looks like when it's all fluffed up. You're going to be able to see the flashaboo in the back, see how it gives it that little shiner type lifelikeness to it. And I said there's several ways that you can actually use these. I'm always using one of my St. Croix. I've got 2 different models in this action. One is the Tournament Legend Walleye, 6/8 medium extra fast. Right? I've also got this in an Avid. It's a great rod, but I really do love these Legend tournaments. I can cast this out and I can retrieve it. I can do that with the ripping shads and just about any bait you could think of, including the jig and wraps. Or if the boat's under the right conditions with the wind and the waves, throw out a couple drift bags if you have to. You can just cast this out, let it hit the bottom, and then just pop it off the bottom about 6 inches and let it rust back. All your hits usually come on that lift. You're making a mud trail. You're skipping, creating a mess that the fish are attracted to. All right. That is a Lake Erie hair jig for the tournaments. Antifreeze. The different products I used were the vices from Cabela's, the cheap pair of scissors from Sears, hardhead cement, my polar fibers, my craft fur, the chartreuse perchy looking Flashaboo. The bobbins were like $6 at Cabela's. The scissors, who knows what. The vices are only $13 or less than $13 at Cabela's. I've got 4 of them because that's usually how many jigs are. I have a little production line going when I get done making all the different colors. St. Croix rods, as always. The Michigan Walleye Tour. Can't wait to get out there, even though I really want to get on the ice at some point this year. So, until next time.